Hey, Margie here. We all want to be successful when it comes to figuring out a plan when we're faced with challenges. And the challenge could be finding out you have osteoporosis, osteopenia, or just at risk, and wanting to know what you can do. Well, today we're going to talk about the team approach because you don't need to do it alone. And our special guest is Kevin Ellis, who's better known as Bone Coach. Kevin is a certified integrative nutrition health coach, bone health advocate, and is the founder of bonecoach.com. Through his coaching programs, Kevin and his team have helped people in over 1,500 cities around the world get confident in their Stronger Bones plan. His mission is not just to help over 1 million people around the globe build stronger bones, but also to educate future generations to prevent osteoporosis. And today we're going to talk about what we can all do to successfully create our own bone health team. So this is full of lots of great information, so stay tuned. Welcome, Kevin. I'm really happy to have you here. I think this topic is just so important, and I think will help people get beyond what might be blocking them. So I'm really, really happy to have you here, and welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Margie. I'm super happy to be here.
I always love to hear the backstory, and your story is interesting because what's a young person like you, a young father, doing, talking about osteoporosis and specializing in osteoporosis and working with women all over the world with osteoporosis. So why don't you tell us how this started, how you got to be the bone coach?
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of unusual where most of the time you're not hearing about, a male in their early 30s that had osteoporosis and, had to work through the challenges associated with it. And for me, my health journey and my challenges started when I was a lot younger. When my mother was 5 months pregnant with me, my father was told that he had cancer. And 2 months after I was born, he had passed away and he was 35. So I kind of started my life with having this fear that, I was going to follow down that same path to an early grave. And when I was diagnosed in my early 30s with osteoporosis, I thought my fate was going to be the same as my father, because at the time I was still trying to resolve all these other health issues. I had autoimmune disease, celiac disease was a major contributor, malabsorption of nutrients for many years. A lot of things that had, maybe from my younger years, not having the right diet, nutrition, things like that. And then I was just still trying to resolve digestive issues too. So all these different things. And then I had, young kids, and I just wanted to be there for them. And I was worried that that wasn't going to be the case. So, and when I was diagnosed, I do remember, being told that fracture was going to be my future, medication was going to be the only option. And it was scary. And it's, I realized through that whole journey and through that whole process of trying to figure out what needed to be done to improve my body, improve my bones, all the research, the reading, consulting with people, all the money I spent, all that stuff, it is a journey for sure. And I realized along the way, it's usually not the average 30-year-old male that's diagnosed. It's the average 50 or 60, so year old woman that's diagnosed. And the challenges that they have associated with trying to figure out what needs to be done to improve are pretty massive, because in most cases, the standard recommendation that's provided is calcium, vitamin D, walking, and a bone medication. And that's woefully inadequate. There's just so much more to the picture than that. And that's the entire reason why I started Bone Coach and bonecoach.com.
I love that. And I think just before we even go on, I think another important thing is that here, it's not just someone with celiac. There's lots of people, and so many people with digestive disorders. And it's not something that the doctors, let's check your bones. So I think something for everybody listening, anybody with digestive disorders, with celiac or any type of gluten sensitivity problem is really at risk. And luckily, they found out before you had a fracture, but, it's sad that people just go on without even realizing there's so much that can be done and that their bones are at risk. So yes, quite a story. And so you did all, but could we just finish it, how you got yourself better? So you were able to.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of that was, it took a long time just to even get through reading all the books. I mean, all the books that are out there. I actually even have one of the most expensive books I remember investing in. Was like an atlas for osteoporosis. And it was crazy. You know, there's just so much information out there to wade through. And then you have to consult. You know, I went and I consulted with a lot of different people. Some had good information, some didn't. You kind of have to take that and piece together what's going to work for you. And, you know, then, you know, you've just got to apply it. You have to start making progress. And it's not like for any single person that this is just going to happen overnight, right? Bone remodeling doesn't work like that. It's a long process, but when you start focusing on things a little bit at a time, and you focus on maybe doing things 1% better every single day, or start making those small micro steps, that's what's going to give you the best shot of improvement long term. You're going to make the progress that way. Progress is what's going to lead to improvement. And then you want to look at also some objective markers along the way. So see what's happening in your bone turnover markers, which I'm sure you talk about. And then you monitor those bone density scans long term too.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, both you and I, you know, I think we have the same philosophy that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and the light's even brighter because along the way you're doing all these amazing things that when you help your bones, everything else gets better also. So you look back and it's almost a blessing in disguise. That's what I've been seeing with everybody. And I know people feel the same way when they're going through your program. So let's talk about some of the problems and challenges, because we both see these, but I know people are, you know, what have you seen with what's stopping people, or what's, you know, a lot of people have the knowledge, they're reading, they're doing, but yet they're blocked, or they just, you know, I know confusion is a piece, but what have you seen really that's maybe stopping people in their tracks from not achieving what they want to achieve?
I would say the first thing is, and the most common thing that I hear from people is knowledge is the first one. Right? There's so much information out there. How do I know what's the right information to actually incorporate? If you zoom out and you look at all the things that need to be addressed for improving your health and improving your bones, there are a lot of different pieces involved in that puzzle. And if you're going on the internet, and let's say in some cases, it might even be the same search, you can find conflicting information in the same search. And then you do that over 100, 150, 200 different things, you know, it starts to become, you know, evident why people have a challenge figuring this out on their own, because you have these decision points that you have to make. And if you're using the wrong information, that could prevent you from making progress. So having that knowledge is probably one of the biggest things that holds people back. I would say too, is a lot of times people feel like they're blocked by their physicians to move down a path that they actually want to go down, or at least explore. Usually at the point of diagnosis, people are recommended a medication. Sometimes a proper workup has been done in advance when that medication is proposed, but oftentimes, I would say 85% of the time that I've seen it, a proper workup has not been done. And, you know, having those conversations and saying, hey, look, I'm not saying no to what you're saying. This is maybe the dialogue you have with your physician. I'm not saying no, but I'm not saying I'd like to make more educated and informed decisions. Can we get some more data? Can we get some more information? Maybe a few more lab tests to help get the full picture. That's one of the other points that a lot of people have challenges with, is making the progress with their doctor. And it is important to work with your physician. I do want to point that out too.
Yeah, I want to say something about that as well, because you know, I think I'm very involved with all sorts of physicians who are conventional, you know, all sorts of different doctors and different organizations. And I think what I've seen, it's not that they are trying not to know, but it's not the training. You know, the training is there, taught the right thing. If you have a certain bone density score, is you go on medication. So unless they're a functional medicine doctor, they don't really have the training in the root causes and the testing to do. So a lot of times it's not that they are meaning to, you know, they just feel they have to get you on medication. I think a lot of it's just education, and they just haven't been exposed to this. So I think that's such a good point. What you said is, you know, asking for some more tests but including the doctor. You know, I think the big mistake is a lot of times you're like, oh, well, I can't see that doctor because I don't want to do what he or she says. No, just like you said, bring them in. So I couldn't agree more. Is there anything else you want to say about that?
Yeah, and it's not like we shouldn't have this adversarial relationship or viewpoint where we just bunch every single physician into conventional medicine and just say, this is the conventional bucket. I don't want anything to do with that. I only want the, holistic side and the natural approach. Yes, I would say most people we work with, that's the approach they want to take, right? They want the natural, they want the holistic approach, but it doesn't mean everything over here is in the conventional side is just, we don't want to pay attention to anything there. A lot of those physicians are really intelligent people. They've got a lot of training. They understand, different parts of the body and things like that. They can be a really good advocate for you or somebody to really help you in your plan if you've got a good physician, right? And if you don't, I'm not saying right now, go fire your doctor, but sometimes if you, maybe there's not, like, not every doctor is 100% perfect with every single person. Maybe it may make sense to find another physician. That's okay too. But I would at least make sure that's a part of your plan. And then if we're on the functional medicine side too, that's always an important element to have in your plan as well, to have that full picture, because that's really also where we're exploring more of the root cause issues of things. And, that's where we're more open to that. So that's where you're working with your functional medicine practitioners, your naturopathic doctors, those kinds of people.
Okay, so let's just talk about the team. Well, actually, no, before we go to the team, like, what have you found create success? Because you have had people who've done really, really well and are on a plan and feeling good about what they're doing. So what do you feel are the major components that's creating the success?
Yeah, and it's having a strategy, right? Instead of just coming into, maybe you receive the diagnosis, or maybe you're continuing to lose more bone or something like that. And instead of just trying to grab at straws and maybe pick one or two things here or there that you read or that you heard might be helpful, like, grabbing some collagen or, grabbing, just doing a couple exercises here and there, you have to zoom out and you have to look at the whole picture and you have to make sure you're not missing things. So making sure that you have identified and addressed all those root cause issues, right, that could be contributing to bone loss. You have to start there. A big part of that is lab testing, communicating with your doctor, working with your doctor. The nutrition and nutrients piece, diet, digestion, absorption, you have to address those things, right? Because if you're not absorbing nutrients or you're not taking them in, you're not going to have the raw materials and nutrients that you need to build stronger, healthier bones. So that's the other component that you have to have. And the third one is you have to, you have to reduce your stress, improve your sleep, optimize your hormones, improve your exercise plan, all that kind of stuff. Those are really all the big pieces. And you could see if we're only pulling in a collagen or a vibration plate, and, we think those things by themselves are going to get us to where we want to be a year or two from now, those things independently will not do it. Right. So that's why we have to zoom out and look at the bigger picture and kind of structure a plan around that picture.
And one other piece I know is a big part of your program, exercise.
Yeah. It's a massive part. And I know you're really well versed in the exercise piece for osteoporosis. But yeah, I mean, exercise is such an important part of doing the right things. And actually, one of the things that I've come to find is a lot of times people either when they are told they have osteoporosis or low bone density, they may slow down or reduce the intensity or, not do exercises because they're worried about fracture. That's a big thing. And I'll have conversations with people where they're telling me that maybe they're doing 100 reps with a 2-pound weight. That's not really going to provide the stimulus needed to actually build bone strength. So you just got to make sure you're doing the right things and providing that right stimulus there. The other thing I think when it comes to exercise that prevents people from doing things is pain. Pain in maybe it's osteoarthritis, or maybe they've had a fracture, or maybe they had some kind of accident or injury when they were younger, and that causes pain for them when they move, or it's compromising their body mechanics. So they just don't do those exercises. And then we have, again, another situation where somebody is not going to be getting the stimulus that they need. So it's navigating those pieces and making sure we get the right plan in place kind of for the individual need too.
Yeah. And the other thing that I think is important is for people, what I've seen so often as people will say, oh, I just want to reverse my osteoporosis. And so, what are the goals? Because if you start with unrealistic goals, you're not going to achieve them. And the point is that you can live the most amazing life, and you don't have to, quote, reverse your osteoporosis. So let's talk about that term, because I agree with you. We both are on the same page with how we feel about the reversing the osteoporosis.
Yeah, and reversing osteoporosis. I mean, I think that term can be in many cases misleading for some people. Like, let's say you have osteoporosis, negative 2.5, World Health Organization's criteria for having osteoporosis. You have negative 2.5 1 year. 1 year later, you get a DEXA scan, you have a negative 2.4 bone density scan. Did you reverse osteoporosis? Well, number one, you're probably still within the margin of error of that DEXA scan. So that's one thing that could affect that. Number two, that's like, those aren't significant changes. Number two is if somebody has maybe a fracture, that can actually show an increase in your bone density. If somebody has osteoarthritis, that can actually lead to showing an increase in your bone density too. And there can be other things that can influence a bone density score. So I don't know, moving away from, getting in our head that we have to reverse osteoporosis. That's just not even something I encourage people to do. I encourage people to focus on the things that are going to help you make progress and improvement. So let's just take the goal of improvement for anybody. And that varies and differs based on your starting point. So if you're right now, if you are actively losing bone, and you still have root cause issues contributing to your bone loss, what is the improvement that we need to make? It's not reversing osteoporosis. It's addressing those root cause issues, looking for near-term objective improvements in something like a urine NTX and a serum CTX in a 3 to 6 month period, maybe a little bit longer than that. Those are meaningful improvements that you can start to look at in the near term. Did you address the root cause? Are you seeing improvements in those bone markers? Let's say somebody is not actively losing bone and they're just, maybe it's building bone strength or improving their bone density. That could actually be an improvement that's made. But the improvements that are usually going to be made in short time periods are not going to be, you're not going to be able to tell that from a DEXA scan because there is that margin of error on the DEXA scan. And, if somebody's got 3 to 5% improvement in a year, that's pretty amazing, right? That's a really good improvement. Beyond that, it's probably not going to be realistic or physiologically possible. Some people, maybe they have bone density in, the negative 3s or negative 4s, and they may think that in a 1 year period, I want to reverse my osteoporosis. And again, that's why I think that can be really misleading, because those kinds of improvements can't be made in that shorter period of time. And then the last part of improvement is maybe somebody has already fractured multiple times or something like that. And it's just making sure our bone strength is still not being reduced, that we've addressed those root issues and we're preventing additional fracture and injury. But I do want to close out by saying improvement, absolutely possible. Like, you can absolutely make improvement, but I think you just have to focus on the right things, right? Break those things that we were talking about down into actionable steps that you can affect the outcome of and make progress in those steps. And if you make progress, that will feed up into improvement.
I couldn't agree with you more because, as you said, everyone is just focused on that bone density, but yet that says nothing. I mean, now there's new tests with the quality of bone, but still, so many
Mhm.
things can be improving. Your balance can be getting better. Your energy's better. You've never felt better in your life. So, your stress is reduced. There's so many great things that can happen along the way. And I agree with you that, just focusing on that is really, really, really limiting. And it's really not the way to show progress. So let's talk about your program, because I want people to know what's available, because I think it's really unique. There's nothing else quite like it in terms of the way you have the different experts. And so why don't you just share a little bit about what you put together, because it is quite special.
Yeah, of course. And so our program it's based on a process, a 3-step process: identify, nourish, build. It covers the areas that people need to address to improve their bone health, identifying those root cause issues, nourishing the body, building strength of body, mind, and bone. So that's kind of the foundational underlying plan, right? So then what we do is, on top of that, a lot of times one of those challenges that we were talking about earlier is making progress with maybe your physicians, or feeling like people just aren't communicating with each other, or you don't have all the people you need in one place. So what we did is we just brought all those people that you need to have on your team into one place. So we have a women's health expert, right? We have an osteoporosis exercise
I mean,
expert. We
let's
have,
say, because all those people have been on the podcast. So you have
oh yeah,
Marcel
okay, yeah,
Tick. Yeah, so
great. So
almost all
Marcel,
of them. Yes, Marcel has been on the podcast. And
fantastic. So yeah, Marcel Pick, she does women's health. She's kind of the women's health expert. Obviously, she's an educator at the Institute for Functional Medicine. She's a brilliant, brilliant woman, and really, really experienced. So she has a really great understanding of hormones and a lot of the other things that with women's health that play into our bone health. So she's a great support, and the people in our programs get to meet with her every single week.
and for how
And
many weeks? How many weeks is that, Kevin?
minimum of 12, or 3 months. In one of our middle tier programs, we have a gold program. That's a middle tier program. People get to meet with these experts for 3 months. In our higher level
So
program,
it's
we have a
once a
9
week. It's once a week they meet with them. Okay.
once a week for the functional medicine people. And then I'll even just go through the rotation. So Mondays we have women's health and hormones calls. They're like Zoom calls where we've got Marcel Pick. She does those calls. And then Tuesday we have diet and nutrition calls. We have a registered dietitian who's also a chef and a university professor. So she knows the nutrients we need to support good bone health. She knows how to make sure it tastes good. And she knows how to make sure that, we're getting the right nutrients that we actually need. So she goes in, she answers questions. You can do personalized, it's like a personalized Q&A too, and a little bit of an education. Wednesdays, we have stress reduction and sleep improvements with a Harvard PhD who she does a big focus on that. She's actually our head of client success too, and that's Paulina Raccoon. And then Thursdays, Dr. Sherry Betts.
And Sherry's been on twice. Sherry's a friend of mine. I have known Sherry so many years. And I mean, anyone who's listened to her podcast episode, there's
She's
nobody.
amazing.
I mean, that's where I have everybody go to Sherry's program, because I just think Sherry's so incredible. So the fact that you get Sherry once a week, and yeah.
Sherry's amazing. Well, Sherry does twice a week. She does 2 times a week in our program. She has Mondays and Thursdays, where she does 1-hour calls, Zoom calls. And Sherry's fantastic. I mean, she's done this so long. She's super smart and knowledgeable. She knows the research. She knows what builds bone, what prevents fracture and injury. And, she's an amazing resource to have. So she's been great. And she and I have been collaborating together now for over a year and a half with women in our program. And all the women in our program just speak so highly of her and just think so highly of her. So, and rightfully so. And then Fridays, we have Betty Murray. She is a functional medicine practitioner. She is just really, really smart. I would say when people have really complex issues, especially with lab testing and things like that, Betty is able to help understand those things. And she's a great resource to have too. So we have 8 Zoom calls with experts every week. for either 3 months or 6 months, depending on which program you're in. And the way they're structured is you basically are, you come in, the expert provides a little bit of an education around maybe a controversial topic or a topic people have a lot of questions around. So we do that for 10 or 15 minutes. We open up for discussion around that topic, and then we open up for Q&A. And what's really great that happens is that a lot of the women, because everybody that's coming into this program, they have osteopenia or osteoporosis, they're trying to improve their bones. They may be asking questions you didn't know you needed to get the answer to. And you get to benefit when the expert versus Google is responding to that question. So it just changes the way that you can get information. So
that's great, Kevin. I just really wanted people to know about this because it's very different. Because it's expensive to see doctors and see 5 days a week to be seeing professionals. So I think that was just really brilliant how you pulled in these experts. And you don't, a health coach has a great experience and great knowledge, but to draw on the expertise of all these amazing people, I think is really wonderful. So I just think you've done a great job. And I just wanted to share that with everybody. So in terms of, and I wanted to say one thing, and Kevin has a special offer that he's giving everybody, but part of that included in that, you want to tell about let's talk about those recipes, because part of what he's giving us has a recipe book in it. Do you want to, why don't you just tell everybody what's available if they're interested?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to link to, I'm going to give Margie a link to a masterclass that's underneath here where you can learn more about the process, it's about a 50-minute masterclass, and it teaches you the process that we use to help people. But then also at the end of that, if you're interested in having help and guidance, and what Margie and I just talked about sounds helpful to you, you can actually submit an application. You can apply to take part in those programs. And we go through a little bit of an application process. We kind of review your information. And if it makes sense, and we invite you to take part, you'll have the opportunity to do so. But we'll leave all that information for you. Margie, have that for the show notes. And then part of signing up for the masterclass is you'll get a bone healthy recipes guide too. So
I want to talk about some of those recipes. Now, I have to be honest, I have the guide, but I haven't made them. And I don't know why. Because I cook all the time. There's two that I'm dying over. So one is the cucumber dressing. That sounds so good. And then the other one that I think is incredible. I mean, they all really look yummy. They all look so good. So I'm going to add those to my repertoire. But the creamed cauliflower soup, that I thought was fascinating, how you put collagen in it. Like, what a great, easy way to put collagen into a soup that looks like it's going to be, I don't see how it can't be delicious with the ingredients that are in it. But so I was very impressed with your chef. She looks, whoever created
I was going to say, that wasn't me who put those together.
No. I figured it was the chef who created those.
Yeah. And what's great about her is Amanda and I have worked together now for probably 2 years at the time of this recording. And she's fantastic. What's been really great is that she has those skill sets. She has both the dietitian, so she understands the nutrients, but she knows how to make sure it tastes good. So she's able to adjust those things for preferences too.
I think that's so important, because I believe in happiness, and I teach happiness, and to be eating food that you feel, oh, I have to eat this for my bones. There's nothing worse. You're getting chemicals of negative. How are you possibly going to enjoy your food, absorb the nutrients? And that's always when people are like, oh, you eat so healthy. How do you do it? It's not that I eat so healthy, or what I recommend is, yes, it is, but it's delicious. So you can just make some, it's not as though I think the food even becomes better because it's nutritious. You feel good afterwards, and it can be delicious. So I think that's exciting for everybody to know. You just have to figure it out, and then you'll have amazing meals. Plus you'll feel good. Plus you're helping your bones. So it's such a win-win situation.
Yeah. And like, I've noticed that whole in society as a whole, it seems like a lot of people think that when you shift to eating healthy, you're maybe having a reduction in flavor or a reduction in, enjoyment of the meal, but that doesn't have to be the case, right? It doesn't have to be the case. So,
I think it's just the opposite, because I was a sugar addict in the past. I'm a recovered sugar addict. And, I would get tired because I was eating, I was like eating sugar during the day to keep me going. And once you switch that, and once you realize, the components of a healthy diet that are also delicious, you don't crave, and you just enjoy. It's such a difference, and it's possible for everybody. So I love the fact that these recipes look so good, and yet really nutritious and very, very very, very full of bone healthy nutrients. So
we did just take one. Nobody likes eating sardines. So we actually, on one of our calls, we're like, okay, what are some recipes that you guys, don't have challenges making, or what are foods that you wouldn't normally like to eat that are maybe bone healthy foods? How can we make recipes? So we'll solicit that feedback. And we just did 2 sardine recipes here recently too. So those are good ones too.
oh, wow. You may have to share one, Kevin, with me. I love sardines. I happen to absolutely love sardines. I love Vital Choice. They are just so
Vital
good.
Choice is the best.
Oh my gosh, they are delicious. So to me, that's a real treat. But you're right. A lot of people don't like it. It's so great because it has calcium, and the sardines with the bones.
Yeah, all the things our bones need, omega-3s, which are going to help dampen inflammation, the proteins. Yeah, it's great. It's just a great food.
Oh, that sounds really good. Is there anything else you want to share? Because I really want what I want. I want people to know everything that's possible on the podcast. That's why I have this podcast and bring different guests. And you have this very successful program that people are really, and I've spoken to numerous people who've gone through the program, and, everybody just raves because it's very intense, and they have, and the nice thing is, one person who's a health coach who I know well, who's doing the program, she doesn't go to everything, but she says, she knows there's these 2 classes. So every week she makes time for those because she really loves those. So you don't have to feel overwhelmed that, oh no, it's every day. You can pick and choose what you want to do. And it was,
yeah, you pick and choose. And like, depending on the program you're in. So like our middle level program is called the Stronger Bone Solution Thrive Gold program. You get all those Zoom calls with experts. You get 24 to 48-hour response time with questions. You get a one-on-one personalized nutrition session with the bone coach team, dietitian, and chef. And you get to be part of, the women that are on these calls too. A lot of times what I've noticed is everybody's situation is uniquely different, but there are so many similarities. I think last year alone, I had close to 1,000 conversations with people. And I would say that a lot of the situations are very, very similar. And the women that are together, learning, are in very similar situations. And then we have the higher level program that we have that actually has some one-on-one, some more one-on-one, where you actually get your own personal coach that goes through the program with you, and you meet with them for multiple sessions throughout your time. And you get to spend a half year learning from our team and working with our team pretty closely. So those are ways that are available. And I would just say, the support levels are there. You don't have to use every single thing. People go on vacations, people have lives, just because you get a diagnosis of osteopenia or osteoporosis, where you decide, hey, I want to make improvement and do something about this. It does not have to consume your entire life. And it doesn't have to be the thing that you focus on every single day for the rest of your life. And the whole focus is get the plan in place so the plan can run in the background and you can enjoy the things you want to do.
Yeah. So for everybody listening, whether this is for you or not, what would you say the key takeaways, Kevin, if maybe the 3 top things for everybody listening, again, just for themselves on their bone program, and just to make sure they're, what would you say would be the 3 biggest things that everybody listening can either do right away or should just, what would you say most important things?
Number 1 is don't just jump right into decisions. Pause and make an objective, informed decision. That's the first thing. The second thing would be develop a plan and be confident in the plan. So have a strategy instead of just tactical pieces. The third thing I would say is be kind to yourself. on any health journey. It's really easy to get caught up in, oh gosh, I should have done this, or I didn't do this when I was younger, and that's why this is the situation now, or I could have done this better, or I tried this thing and it didn't work out. That's going to happen, right? The journey is not perfect. That's just not going to happen. But you just be kind to yourself along the way. Have some forgiveness in there. Forgive yourself. Be kind to yourself, and that's going to set you up for success and a happy life. So,
love that. And yeah, you know what I always think? I always think a diagnosis of osteoporosis is an opportunity. It's an opportunity, a window into your health that you may not have had otherwise. And you find out all of these things, you reduce your stress, you become stronger. And there's nothing more empowering than being stronger. But on so many levels, you get rid of, of issues that could have been bothering for you for years. And so that's how I like to look at it. It's a reframe. Okay, here's where I am. What can I do? Fortunately, a lot of times it's silent. You find out from a bone density. So you're feeling good. It's not as though you're debilitated, unless it starts with a fracture, but most times it doesn't. So yes, so it's all good. And I couldn't, agree with you more. And I wanted just to share this because there's so many possibilities for everybody and there's so many resources. And, it's just a matter of, like you said, figure out what you want to do, get your plan, and be kind to yourself. Love those three because that is so important. Yeah. So thank you so much. We'll have all the links to everything you said. And I always enjoy being with you. And it's great. I'm just really happy that you have this program to offer people because you've done so much from your own experience. Like who would think, that's also how I look at life, that there's always a silver lining. So who would think from everything you went through as a young person that you're helping people all over the world? So am I right with that? Like when you look back, that's a crazy thing.
Honestly, if you would have told me when I was getting out of the Marine Corps in 2009, I finished up my last deployment. If you would have told infantry Marine Kevin that he would be leading an osteoporosis program that has helped a lot of women at this point, is still helping a lot of women all over the world, I probably wouldn't believe you at that point. But it's been a great journey, and it's just really rewarding to see the progress people make too.
Well, thanks so much for being with us here today, Kevin.
Thanks so much, Margie.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Kevin and now have a better understanding of how you can use a team approach on your journey to optimal bone health. All the links that Kevin talked about will be in the show notes, including the link to his webinar. And as part of that, the link to these great recipes that look so good. I haven't tried them yet, but I'm going to, but they look just amazing. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.